Erick Erickson Show across the state of Georgia and across the nation. Welcome. We got Georgia news we got to deal with out of the gate today. The phone number, if you want to be a part of the program, 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. So this has national implications. It's a Georgia story with huge national implications. Congressman Doug Collins is expected to announce he's running for the Senate against Kelly Loeffler today. Before you cheer on this, we need to have a conversation about this. I think he's making a big mistake here. And I like Congressman Collins tremendously. He's a fine guy. I'm not going to be critical of him. I know he would like to get in the Senate. He's not happy being in the minority in the House. He does think he will be more supportive of the president than Kelly Loeffler long term, and maybe he will. She has not done a great job of defining herself yet. She's still an unknown. She's got some campaign fundamentals that need to be worked on. But here's the problem. According to the law in Georgia, when a vacancy opens and the governor appoints someone to fill that role for the U.S. Senate, there's what's called a jungle primary or jungle ballot. That is, all the Republicans and all the Democrats pile onto the ballot together. The governor picked Kelly Loeffler for a number of reasons. Kelly Loeffler is a self-made woman, a careerist. She is a billionaire in her own right and then married a billionaire. She owns an WNBA team. She owns the New York Stock Exchange with her husband. She has a background in cryptocurrency. She grew up on a farm. She's a self-made person. And the governor wants to expand the Republican base in Georgia at a time demography in Georgia is changing. She's unquestionably a conservative. She has raised money for the Republicans here in Georgia a number of years. She backed Mitt Romney. She backed Donald Trump. Loeffler is fundamentally a conservative, though not a conservative activist. And she's got money she can spend to help keep the state Republican. She has cash on hand for her campaign now, a sum equivalent to all the money raised by Governor Kemp to run in 2018. Loeffler has on hand now $22 million. She gave herself $20 million. She's got $2 additional million. She's got $22 million. Governor Kemp raised $22 million to run his race. So Collins will have to raise an exorbitant amount of money. But here's the thing, and this is the problem, and this is why I think Doug Collins is making a mistake. Under the existing law in Georgia, all the Democrats and Republicans pile in together, and the Republican calculus had been that the Democrats would flood the zone with a bunch of candidates. They wouldn't be able to contain themselves, and it is happening. Ralph Warnock is getting in. You've got Matt Lieberman is already in. There are a couple others who are getting in. And on top of that, you'll just have Kelly Loeffler. So the Democrats will divide their vote. If Loeffler gets 50% plus one vote, she automatically gets back into the Senate. She doesn't have to go into a runoff. If Loeffler makes it to a runoff and a Democrat is able to get enough votes to get her into a runoff, then Loeffler has a bigger war chest than that Democrat, and Republicans tend to do better in runoffs in Georgia than Democrats. So the advantage is absolutely to the Republicans in a jungle primary, and the Democrats know that. The Democrats also know that the Speaker of the House is no friend of Brian Kemp. He has now decided to scuttle Brian Kemp's adoption reform effort in the state. He has tried to scuttle a number of other Brian Kemp initiatives, and now he wants to scuttle the Kelly Loeffler pick, not just scuttling the Kelly Loeffler pick. He also wants to help Doug Collins, who was a loyal lieutenant of his in the House. Now, the Speaker of the House in Georgia is scandal-plagued at this point. He's going to be an issue in the campaign in 2020. The Speaker of the House helped a number of criminal defendants and denied justice to a number of victims, dragged those cases out for a while. Advertisements have already been shot by some of the victims that will be used in the general election. I know because I've played audio of these victims, and I have heard from several asking me to stop playing the audio because of this campaign the Democrats want to run. And I've been trying to tell the Republicans this. So along comes Doug Collins, who wants to run for the Senate, who lobbies aggressively for the Senate pick. And by the way, one of the reasons that Doug Collins did not get picked by Governor Kemp, there were two main reasons. One, The governor's office felt like they needed someone who could raise a massive amount of money and self-fund, and that would be Loeffler, not Collins. And two, they needed someone who could expand the base, and that was Kelly Loeffler in the suburbs, not Doug Collins, who could bring out the Republican base, but could he add to the base? Could he expand the party? And their calculus was that she would have an easier time than him. But there's a third reason as well. The third reason is they did not want to set a precedent for bullying the governor to get picks, and the governor's office felt like there was a bullying campaign by Trump supporters and others to make it Doug Collins, and it would make the governor look weak, and it would make him look like a Trump lackey if he went that way, when the governor has worked very hard over the last year and a half to show himself to be his own man. And that has worked for him. He is at above 50% in every poll out there on his popularity. The governor is hugely popular right now. A lot of the people who voted against him in 2016 or 2018 are saying they'll vote for him in 2022 because he's proven to be a conservative, but also his own man. And that matters. The diehard Trump supporters, however, don't like that. The diehard Trump supporters want him to express fealty to the president, and they're mad at him over the Doug Collins thing. So here's the state of play now. The Democrats in Georgia do not want a jungle primary. The Democrats in Georgia want to rewrite the rules and change the way the election will be conducted, even though we're already into the process. The process has begun. The process began the moment Kelly Loeffler was sworn in. And the Democrats don't like that process, so they want to change the rules. And they are working with the Speaker of the House, David Ralston, to change the rules. Yes, David Ralston, the Republican Speaker of the House, is working with Democrats in the State House to undermine Governor Kemp. There is no other way to put it. He is undermining Governor Kemp in this effort, and you need to understand that's what's happening. He's working with Democrats. The Secretary of State asked everyone to change the date of qualification for this jungle primary. The reason the Secretary of State wanted to change the date for qualification is because he's worried about being able, if there are a bunch of people on the ballot, he's worried about being able to get ballots printed and sent to soldiers, sailors, and airmen abroad and Marines, and have our armed forces abroad be able to vote in November. And so he asked for the time for qualifications to be brought back when everybody else is qualifying. The Democrats have seized on this request from Brad Raffensperger to get the Speaker of the House to go along with setting up a primary. Now, again, the Republicans were banking on there being a jungle primary. You would have all the Democrats piled on the ballot with Kelly Loeffler. The Democrats would split their vote up. Kelly Loeffler would win without a runoff. It would save taxpayer dollars. It would ensure her reelection or her election. It would be good for the Republicans in the state. It would be one less race on which they need to spend a bunch of money when they're trying to keep the House and the Senate. Well, the Democrats are working with the Speaker to create a primary process, which is a fundamental change of the rules while the game is already being played. They want to have the Speaker as a Doug Collins friend and wants Doug Collins to run against Kelly Loeffler. He wants to beat the governor and he wants to beat Kelly Loeffler. He also wants to beat conservatives. You need to understand this. It is somewhat interesting here that Collins is perceived as being more conservative than Loeffler, and yet the Speaker wants to use Collins to beat the conservatives. Why? Because conservatives in Georgia are showing a good bit of loyalty to Brian Kemp, and the Speaker, therefore, is upset with conservatives showing loyalty to Brian Kemp, and he thinks they need to be humbled. And one way to humble them is to divide them from the governor and try to force a split on the conservative side between Loeffler supporters and Collins supporters. The Speaker has managed to maintain his position for so long by dividing conservatives and believes that a primary would divide the conservatives and keep them fractured and keep him in power so that no one would be able to unite against the Speaker. So creating a primary helps the Democrats and helps the Speaker divide the conservative base. It hurts Loeffler and it hurts the Republicans. Now, the reason it hurts Loeffler, obviously, is because she'll have to go into a primary. Undisputedly, Doug Collins is a hero to a lot of people in the impeachment trial and the like. He's a personally great guy. He's a good man. He's a good congressman. He is a conservative. And Loeffler will have to run in that race with him in that primary. But what it also does is it gives the Democrats an advantage to be able to consolidate behind one person. See, if you remember, you've got David Perdue on the ballot in November as well. And with Perdue on the ballot in November and Loeffler on the ballot in November, the Democrats are going to have a bunch of candidates because while Perdue's race would go through a primary and it'll be between Sarah Riggs-Amico, Teresa Tomlinson, John Ossoff, there will only be one Democrat to focus on. But in the Loeffler race, there could be 5 Democrats to focus on, and it will prevent even the Democrat running against Perdue from getting the message out. And so by consolidating a primary and making a primary for Loeffler as well as Perdue, it allows the Democrats to consolidate behind 2 candidates, one for Perdue and one for Loeffler. So the Democrats will be better able to focus their message. Doug Collins doing what he's doing with the Speaker and the Democrats fundamentally changes the rules of the election as the campaign's already begun. And it hands a huge advantage to the Democrats by allowing the Democrats to rapidly consolidate behind one person for Perdue and one person for Loeffler, instead of having a million candidates running and no unified message. But there's another thing it does as well that hurts the Republican Party, in addition to fracturing. And let's be clear here, the Speaker of the House understands this. The Speaker of the House in Georgia understands this is going to fracture conservatives, not just at the state level, but at the national level as well. There will be a lot of conservatives who want to rush in and help Doug Collins at the national level. They will, and they'll be right to. Doug's been loyal to them. They'll be loyal to Doug. But there will be a lot of people who come in and they want to help Governor Kemp as well, because Governor Kemp has earned a lot of friends. And you'll have the pro-life movement now split, because a lot of the pro-life groups in D.C. that were skeptical of Loeffler, she's won them over now. And so they'll be split on the race. So what will happen is you'll have a bunch of divided resources pouring into the state, and you'll have a bunch of Republicans spending money in Georgia on a Senate seat when, oh, by the way, look over here, the General Assembly is in danger of going to the Democrats. Collins getting in means for every new dollar that goes into that race, there's one less dollar going to protect the General Assembly, and redistricting is coming. Collins getting in increases the odds of the Democrats taking back the state house because of all the resources that will pour into the Senate race that would otherwise go to protecting the House and the Senate. This isn't a good thing for the GOP in Georgia. This divides the GOP in Georgia at the very moment it needs unity. I don't know if you guys are paying attention to this, but the state Republican Party does not have a lot of money in the bank. And Loeffler was going to be able to help fund the state party and get the state party back on its feet. And now she's not going to be able to do that because she's got to protect her seat. I don't fault Doug Collins for wanting the seat. Again, he's now in the minority in the House. He's not in the majority. He's not a committee chairman. The House is not going to go back to the Republicans in 2020. He would like to go to the Senate. He doesn't want Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. And I get that. I fundamentally get that. But I also get and understand that by him doing it this way, by working with the Democrats, by working with the Speaker and the Democrats to do this, he's making it harder for the GOP to consolidate in Georgia. He's making it harder for conservatives to unite in Georgia. He's making it harder to hold on to the state House in Georgia. He's making it harder to hold on to the state Senate in Georgia. He's making it harder for the GOP to rally in Georgia. He's making it easier for the Democrats to unite behind one candidate. He's making it easier for the Democrats to consolidate their message. He's making it easier for the Democrats to find core talking points. He's making it easier for the Democrats to get it to November. He's making it easier for the Democrats and harder for the Republicans. And again, I like Doug, but this is a mistake. This is a mistake. I understand that he wants it. And I understand he's popular, and I like the guy too. But this starts a civil war on the Republican side. And one more thing you need to understand. This is a race the governor has to win. This is a challenge to the governor's authority. The governor must win this seat. The governor must win this race. The governor must make sure Kelly Loeffler wins, because if he doesn't, then he's going to be a lame duck, even though he could potentially serve another term. This is a direct challenge to the speed, to the power of the governor by the Speaker of the House, a man who does not have conservative interests at heart. And the people who are supporting Doug should ask themselves, why is a Speaker of the House who has shown nothing but unbridled hostility to conservatives trying to do this? It has everything to do with dividing conservatives and helping the Democrats. And Doug Collins should not be the pawn of the Speaker and the Democrats. And that's what he's become. The quest for power does things to people. And I would love to see Doug Collins in the Senate, but it's a mistake for him to do it this way.
I really do like his opinion on things.
Erick Erickson, the information you need.
Now, Collins running for the U.S. Senate, of course, will create an opportunity for an election up in northeast Georgia. Let me give you the counties that are affected. Those of you listening on WCHM in Habersham County, you know you're involved here. It's Elbert, Madison, Jackson, Hall, Northern Forsyth, Dawson. What else? Lumpkin County is in there. Fanning County is in there. Looks like, is it part of, no, it's not part of Cherokee County. White County, Habersham County, Rabun County, Franklin County, Banks County, Hart County, that area up there. It is the northeast corner of the state, is where the special election would, or not, it wouldn't be a special. It wouldn't be a special election up there. It would be not changing the rules. The the governor was willing to move up the qualification period so that it wouldn't complicate ballot dispersal, but he's not willing to fundamentally change the rules of the game. He says that's what the Democrats accuse the Republicans of doing all the time, and he's not going to fall for it, even though the Democrats want it. So there won't be a changing of the rules, which means there will be a November jungle primary with everyone on board, unless the House and Senate can override the governor's veto, which I think the Senate's going to kill the legislation anyway. And so you're going to have a situation then where there's going to be a special election up there at some point in the future. And when that happens, it'll be Northeast Georgia. Again, it's Fanning County, Rabun County, Habersham County, White, Lumpkin, Dawson, Northern Forsyth, Hall County, Banks County, Franklin County, Hart County, Elbert County, Madison County, Jackson County. It is goes straight down into a little bit of Republican district. The Democrats do not actually have a shot in 2018. I think the Democrat got 10% of the vote, 15% of the vote, maybe. Actually, let me check my facts on that so I can give it to you right. And Josh McCall, the Democrat, got 20.49% of the vote. So it is not exactly a favorable district for a Democrat. It is Georgia's 9th congressional district. And so there will be a race there. Now, Zoller, the talk radio show host, is being floated as a name. Several other names out there that could run for Doug Collins' seat if he actually does run for the Senate seat. But again, this is the issue here. If Collins does actually intend to run, and there is a primary, well, then you're not going to worry about a special election. If the governor vetoes it and the veto stands, which is likely, then we're not going to see this race shape. He can remain a congressman. And to some degree, that actually benefits him there as well. He could remain a congressman, run for the Senate, and go from there. And unless there is a provision on the ballot, there is a provision in Georgia law that might affect him there. If you're running for an office and the term of that office is different from your office, you may have to step aside. I'm not sure that would impact him, though, given the alignment of the terms. But anyway, this is going to be a huge fight in Georgia. The Speaker of the House siding with the Democrats to change the rules to go after Brian Kemp and Kelly Loeffler, and that's going to have some major blowback in the state and national repercussions as Welcome back. The phone lines are open if you want to call in. If you want to weigh in on the Doug Collins, Kelly Loeffler thing, feel free to. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC. 877-973-7425. Do know Beverly in Rome, she listens to WRGA up in Rome, emailed and asked, hey, we're in this Action Army thing. Is there something we can do? Yes. I will do an action alert so that you can reach out to your House member and tell your House member not to side with the House Democrats on changing the rules in the middle of the game. It only helps the Democrats. The link to use. Text the word Army to 33777. Text the word Army to 33777. And later on, I will send you back a text this afternoon here in Georgia and tell them don't help the Democrats change the rules in the middle of the game. You know, it just, and I don't want to dwell on this issue, though. I will take your phone call if you got something to say on this, but I do find it a little bit preposterous that for now, what do the Republicans want to do? They want to change the rules in the middle of the game. I think that's bad form. I think that it is going to hurt the Republicans badly. And I think it is going to undermine the Republicans' ability to move from the White House, where he's worked with the vice president, he's worked with the president's team, and he's now going to run Kelly Loeffler's campaign team. Billy Kirkland ran David Perdue's campaign. Those two, that guy is now going to run Kelly Loeffler's campaign. My suspicion here's we're going to see that some of Casey Cagle and Nathan Deal's team runs Doug Collins' seat. Now, for those of you not in Georgia, you don't need to get in the weeds here, and I don't mean to be so in the weeds with everybody here, but it is worth understanding the political dynamic. Belief among some in the Republican Party that they call it the Gainesville Mafia. Now, it's not really a mafia or anything like that. It's just they're. And they also helped Doug Collins. And they've also helped the Speaker of the House, David Ralston. And Brian Kemp's election is an affront to their power. Brian Kemp did not get elected on the fortunes of the power players in that area. He got elected with his revealed that the power brokers did not have as much power with the base as they thought. And it was an eye-opening experience as much for everyone else as it was for them, that their power was not as much as they thought it was. County, we've got a governor from Clark County. The Hall County power base, that area up there has largely been in decline, and they would very much like to for marginalizing them, for alienating them, and for taking away my listeners in Hall County, where I have a lot. But you do need to understand that this is kind of a core base of support there for these folks, and they don't like that the governor is not one of them. He's from the outside. They all backed Kate up as a compromise to the governor of, you will keep us happy if you put Doug Collins in the Senate, and we will help you. The governor said no. The governor wanted someone who could work in the suburbs in the Atlanta area, and now they're out to get the governor. So this is going to be a good big fight in the state of Georgia. The huge speaker fight versus the governor. I'm telling you, the gloves are going to have to come off on this. He wants to stop the governor's support of religious liberty actions in Georgia to help the Democrats. The governor is not going to be able to fight back. This is a challenge to his power, and it's going to be interesting to see. Now, speculating from CNN, from Don Lemon's show, and it happened the other day. Attention because my buddy Steve Krakauer actually saw it and flagged it, and a lot of conservatives pay attention to, which is way more than it had at CNN. And I want you to listen to this and think that CNN, which obsesses over Fox News, doing
find Ukraine on a map if you had the letter U and a picture of an actual physical crane next to it. He knows that this is audience, the credulous boomer Rube demo that
you elitists with your geography and your maps and your spelling, even though my
your math and your reading.
Yeah, you're only them elitists know where Ukraine is. Sorry, I apologize. But by the way,
oh my God!
But you know what? But it was Rick's fault.
Hold on. Sorry. That was good. Sorry, Rick. That was a good one. I needed that.
That was when there were protesters outside Mitch McConnell's house threatening to go in. I insert my standard admonition about having worked at CNN and liking the people at CNN and even knowing, and people at CNN will say, oh, Fox News does this all the time. CNN goes out of its way to make sure everybody knows it's not Fox News. I mean, Fox News lives rent-free in CNN's head. Don't believe me? Listen to this Reliable Sources show.
Hey, I'm Brian Stelter. Welcome to Reliable Sources. This hour, as the impeachment trial goes on, brand new polling for the Fox firewalls.
The Fox audience and
Fox News.
Yeah.
But then Fox
News, Fox News, Fox News.
We're live on Fox for FoxNews.com.
Fox News.
Fox stars and Fox News. I wanted to ask you about a brand new Fox News poll. We will see you back here on the program this time next week.
Fox. And CNN went after Fox News for doing this about the left. And now you've got a CNN host. Here's the problem. I mean, you could be offended by this, and you should be. Some of you won't be because you actually think that's how Trump voters are. And I understand you, and I disagree with you, but the phrase fair and balanced. CNN uses the phrase fair and balanced. CNN likes to be the network that is. CNN is a network that has in the past prided itself on a level of balance. If you were going to have a Republican, you needed to have a Democrat. If you were going to have a Trump supporter, you needed to have a Trump opponent. If you were going to have a Democrat, you had to have a Republican. If you're going to have a Trump opponent, you had to have a Trump supporter. Here is a host and two people who dislike Donald Trump on people. And I liked those odds. I was fine. They would step on each other and I could make one cogent point. But there's, for the longest time at Fox, you had to have balance in your panels. And at some point, a couple of years ago, Fox stopped being so wedded to the idea of that balance, and CNN went after them for doing that. Where is the balance on the CNN? CNN says it does news. Well, here's Don Lemon's show where they're all having a good time, laughing at Trump voters, making fun of Trump voters, Southern accents and the like, ridiculing Trump voters, and there is no balance and there is no news in it. It is a self-affirming. It's no different from MSNBC, which CNN says it's not, and that as well. That's one of the sticking points here with this is there really isn't any sort of balance. And I got to tell you, along those lines, have they learned nothing? You had the deep condescension from the media over Brexit voters, and guess what? They won. You had deep condescension in 2016 over Trump voters, and guess what? They won. You have continuous deep condescension over Trump and Trump voters, and they lost in 2018, but they've otherwise done a pretty good job, and in fact, they're going to win on impeachment as well. It's an interesting juxtaposition to see a network that prides itself on being a straight news network that can relate to people go in this direction. Donald Trump has broken CNN. Donald Trump has broken CNN. It's a bad look for CNN. They should have known better than to do this at CNN, but they didn't. They went for it anyway. You recognize it, they won't be able to admit they have a problem. Now, most interesting thing about it is that no one noticed at the time, which begs the question of who was actually watching that show, that no one saw it at the time and paid attention to it originally. Who actually is watching that show and what actually are the problems there and who came up with the idea of an unbalanced panel. That's actually really problematic overall from a news network that claims to give you real news, not fake news, and lectures you on the difference between apples and bananas.
Erick Erickson wades through the fake news to give you the real news. It's honest news.
A source just told me there's going to be a special rules meeting today to fast track House Bill 757, which is the Democrats' plan to create a special primary. We will have to get on this. Again, text the word Army to 33777 at the top of the hour. When we go to commercial break, I will get the action alert ready so that you can call your member of the State House of Representatives. You're going to want to oppose House Bill 757, which is the Democrats' attempt to change the rules mid-game with the help of the Speaker. You're going to want to oppose that, so we'll get on it. But you've got to do your part, and the way to do your part is to text the word Army to 33777. It is time to take advantage of the fully operational statewide conservative army that listens to this program. We do not want the Democrats in the state house working with the Speaker of the House to steal an election. So text the word Army to 33777. That is important, very, very important that we do. Now, let me dwell a moment more on the Kobe Bryant stuff, but also it's actually a larger issue. It's not Kobe Bryant per se. You've probably now seen the report. I've had several people send it to me and saying this woman needs to be fired. A woman talking about Kobe Bryant on MSNBC sounded like she said the N-word. She immediately took to social media and apologized and said that's not what happened. She began to say that he played with the Knicks and realized midway through the word Knicks that he played with the Lakers. And the ers from the Lakers went with the word for the other team, and it made it very much sound like she was saying the N-word. And it was a slip of the tongue. She immediately corrected it on air and apologized for it profusely. And there are a lot of people who are just trying to burn her down for claiming that she actually did use the N-word, when I think she very quickly, too quickly, I think, to have come up with it and focus grouped it and worked on with a damage control team. She immediately was out there saying, no, I'm sorry. She's in New York and the Knicks are the team, and she messed up, and she was very sorry. And I don't think she needs to lose her job over something like this. What I do believe is that there are a lot of people in the media who are behaving really badly right now beyond this Don Lemon fair and balanced panel nonsense. But look at this Washington Post reporter, and I don't want to use her name, Felicia something or other. She immediately, within an hour or so of the breaking news that Kobe Bryant had been killed in this helicopter crash, was tweeting out stories about him and sexual harassment and rape allegations from years ago. And she was lit on fire by people on social media. And then she started sharing hate mail she was getting to her Washington Post address, which is against company policy. Her editor intervened and told her she needed to cut it out. She was making the whole place look bad. Emotions were still raw. Now was not the time to immediately go there. So what did she do? Well, they wound up suspending her. And what did she wind up doing? She wound up airing her grievances against the Washington Post. And young millennial reporters are rushing to defend her. Oh, you can't suspend her. How dare you suspend her? No, actually, I think, listen, if you're violating company policy by sharing internal emails and sharing private conversations that your editor has had with you, then you need to be suspended, if not fired. Couple that with the NPR reporter. Listen, I don't know the details on all of it. Mike Pompeo says he had an interview with an NPR reporter. It became hostile. Pompeo asked her to point on a map to Ukraine. She pointed to Bangladesh instead, or Burma, but I think it was Bangladesh. And they ended up in a screaming, cussing match. And she spilled the beans on all of it. Pompeo says it was supposed to be off the record, and she didn't know where Ukraine was. And now they've taken NPR off a trip, and the media screaming about that. When did the media want to become the story? Because a lot of this is about the media becoming the story. A lot of this is about the media making itself part of the story. And it always is young reporters, 20 and 30-something reporters. It's always 20 and 30 something reporters who want to be part. They don't want to break the news. They want to be part of the news. They want to be in celebrity culture, and they want the outrage. They want all of this. And it comes at a time where the media increasingly isn't trusted. They just think about all the young reporters in Washington who told you all what a strategic genius Nancy Pelosi was for several weeks, withholding the articles of impeachment, that it was somehow going to be a strategic genius, Nancy Pelosi. Turns out that Donald Trump's popularity rating, his job approval rating, is the highest it's ever been now.
30.
Did you know that? His popularity is the highest it's ever been. And also, Bernie Sanders looks like he's going to run away with it in Iowa. Remember, she did this to help, some people think at least, to help Joe Biden and to hurt Donald Trump. And it turns out Joe Biden's being hurt and Donald Trump is being helped. But Nancy Pelosi, these same reporters said she's a strategic genius. Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here, the Erick Erickson Show across the state of Georgia. The phone number, if you want to be a part of the program, 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Important. So the Democrats in the state legislature, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it this hour. Let me just, because we got a couple of stations joining now who weren't here in the last hour, let me just simplify this for everyone as we move forward. The Democrats in the state House of Representatives are working with the Speaker of the House, who is purportedly a Republican, to change the rules on elections in Georgia while the election is happening. For a special election in Georgia, all of the candidates, Democrat and Republican together, are piled into an election, and they are all on the ballot together. And the Republican has an advantage because the Democrats, you've got just Kelly Loeffler, and the Democrats have 5 or 6 people running. So the Democrats spread their votes out. Loeffler has the ability to get 50 plus 1 vote and not even have a runoff. The Democrats want to consolidate and want to have a primary for this race. And so the Democrats are working with Speaker David Ralston to create a primary for themselves. In effect, they want to change the rules in the middle of the game so that they don't have to all be on the ballot against Loeffler. The problem here is it's also going to spark a civil war on the Republican side because Doug Collins has decided he's going to run for the Senate against Loeffler and do in a Republican primary if this happens. And that's bad because it will consume massive amounts of resources and divide the Republican Party. And by the way, the Speaker wants the Republican Party divided because there's a growing effort to oust the Speaker. And as long as the conservatives in particular, are divided, then the Speaker gets to cling to power. So this is all about self-preservation on the Speaker's part and also helping the Democrats because the Speaker knows ultimately he's going to wind up needing Democrat help. You need to stop this. It is inappropriate to change the rules of the election in the middle of the game. And that's what the Democrats are trying to do to give themselves an advantage. Can you imagine in November, you've got David Perdue versus 1 Democrat and Kelly Loeffler versus 12 Democrats. It makes it very hard for any one Democrat to gain traction. It makes it very hard for any one Democrat to get attention. And it makes it very hard for any one Democrat to consolidate the vote. That gives an advantage to both David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. And the advantage it gives to David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler is that they will have singular messages. And both David Perdue's opponent and the million Democrats running against Kelly Loeffler will be fighting for attention on the left to get their message out. If the Speaker of the House and the Democrats in the state House are successful, it makes it vastly easier for the Democrats to rally around one candidate for each race. It makes it vastly easier for each of those candidates to get attention. And it makes it vastly easier for the Democrats to coordinate a common message. It gives an advantage to the Democrats they haven't earned. They're trying to change the election while the election is happening, and that is wrong. And the Speaker of the House is doing it because the Speaker realizes it is to his advantage to divide the GOP. So I need you to do something. I need you to text ARMY to 33777. Text the word ARMY to 33777. And what I'm going to do in a few minutes is I'm going to send you back a link. And when you click the link, it'll ask you for your address, and it will generate an email, and if you have Twitter, a tweet to your state representative saying, kill House Bill 757. Do not allow the Democrats to change the rules in the middle of the game. House Bill 757, it comes up for a vote this afternoon. You got to mobilize now. You got to do it now. They need to see these emails. They'll take a lunch break at noon, and this afternoon they're going to have the special meeting. They're rushing it. The Speaker is trying to do it before you guys pay attention. I now have a statewide radio program. You can hear me all the way down 75 from Chattanooga to Lakeland, Florida. You can hear me all the way down 16 from Macon all the way down to Savannah now. You can hear me all over the state of Georgia. We have never done this before on this program. It is now time for conservative conservatives to mobilize and stop the Democrats in Georgia from trying to steal the election. Just call your friends, tell them to do the same thing. Build this conservative army list. We will take action, and we will make sure the entire House of Representatives hears from us today. But you've got to text the word Army right now to 33777. Text the ARMY. Yeah, the number to text is 33777, and the word to text is Army. You do that, and I will text you back in just a little bit. I'm not going to do it immediately because I'm talking right now, and my producer would get very mad at me if I stopped to send you a text message. But I will send you a text message here in a little bit with a link. You'll click the link, put in your address, and you'll get an email generated and a tweet, if you have Twitter, generated to your state representative saying, kill House Bill 757. I may even turn on the telephone option, and so if you push the telephone button, you'll immediately be connected to your state representative, so you can yell at him on the phone for letting the speaker steal the election for the Democrats. Now, this is a larger issue. Let me move away from the actual Doug Collins, Kelly Loeffler situation to the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House wants to exert his power. And he's doing a couple of things here in Georgia. One is he's killing adoption reform in the state. Any of you who have adopted children understand that the costs of adoption in Georgia have gone up astronomically. International adoption costs have gone up even more. The governor wants to make it easier for you to adopt and wants to make it easier to get kids out of foster care into loving families. One of the ways the governor's doing this is he's lowering the age from, you've got to be 25 if you want to adopt right now. He wants to lower it to 21, and that will expand the pool of people who can adopt. The governor wants to raise the tax credit from $2,000 to $6,000 to make it $4,000 more affordable for you to adopt. With the federal tax credit, that's pretty significant, and the state income tax credit, it will make it way more cost effective for people in Georgia to adopt. The governor also wants to create a commission that will study adoption in the state and try to find more ways to make it more cost effective, make it more efficient for adoptions in the state of Georgia. Now, this is necessary because we've done a hodgepodge approach to adoptions. A couple of years ago, there was an adoption measure that came out with Nathan Deal as governor that expanded some areas of efficiency in the state, but they've done everything very piecemeal in the state. And the reason they've done everything piecemeal in the state is because no one has ever sat down and taken a comprehensive look at adoptions in the state of Georgia. No one's ever sat down and taken a comprehensive look at all of the laws that are impacted. Because you got to think about it. Tax laws implicated, health laws impacted, family laws impacted, and contract laws implicated. All sorts of laws are implicated. And the governor wants to set up this commission, and they would spend this year looking at all the laws in the state that would be impacted by adoption and where they can make things more efficient, and then report back at the General Assembly next year with a comprehensive legislative package of reforms to make it more efficient, easier, faster, and cheaper to adopt in Georgia. The Speaker of the House has decided to kill all of this. The reason the Speaker has decided to kill all of this is he is deeply, deeply afraid that Christian adoption agencies may get some legal protections other states have given them. The Speaker of the House is very sympathetic to the LGBTQIAATP, whatever, alphabet gang lobby in the state. And that group is deeply opposed to faith-based adoption agencies operating in the state using their faith-based parameters. So, for example, a Christian adoption agency will only adopt to heterosexual married couple, and the alphabet gang believes this is discriminatory. Now, in fairness to the alphabet gang, yes, it is a Christian adoption agency saying we're only going to allow Christians to adopt to a heterosexual married couple. Yep, that's true. That discriminates against a gay couple. It's true. So, what's the priority here? Is it affirming gay rights, or is it helping people adopt kids? Because there are several hundred adoption agencies in the state of Georgia that a gay couple can go to adopt. Why should they shut down the Christian or the Muslim or the Jewish adoption agency that won't adopt to them? Why should you shut down the Jewish adoption agency that only will allow an Orthodox Jewish person to adopt through their services when you can go elsewhere? What's more important, your ability to go wherever you want or a child's ability to get out of the foster care system and into a loving home? I would argue that it is way more important that we have as many adoption agencies as possible, even those who don't want to adopt outside their criteria for religion, than it is to affirm the alphabet gang at this time. We got a lot of kids in foster care, and they need access. And around the country, Christian adoption agencies, particularly Catholic charities, are being attacked by the left because Catholic adoption agencies will not adopt to single people and will not adopt to anyone who's not married in a Christian family. And the Catholic charities believe they're there to serve the Lord. They believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, and they believe that the best stable place to raise a child is in a two-parent heterosexual nuclear household. That is Christian. And in New England, Catholic charitable adoption agencies have virtually been wiped out because of this, because the gay rights community has decided it is more important to affirm gay rights values than to have as many available avenues for adoption as possible. And as Catholic charities have shut down, new adoption agencies haven't started. It's just expanded the number of people going to a smaller number of adoption agencies. In Georgia, the fight is beginning to happen. There are municipalities in Georgia that are beginning to question whether or not they should give business licenses to faith-based adoption agencies. In progressive cities in Georgia, and there are some, they want to shut down faith-based adoption agencies unless those faith-based adoption agencies surrender their faith-based values. And the alphabet gang wants this done because they believe that their values are more important than the availability of adoption for kids. And the Speaker of the House has sided with them, and as a result has decided to scuttle all of the governor's adoption reforms because of the potential. It's not even a certainty, but the potential that faith-based adoption agencies may get protections under the law. And now, in addition to scuttling adoption reform in the state, the Speaker of the House of Representatives has decided to join with with Democratic activists on this and change the rules of the election. The Speaker of the House wants to show the governor that he's in charge. But more importantly, the Speaker of the House needs to divide conservatives. The Speaker of the House is involved in a scandal involving defending criminal defendants and protecting them from ever having to go to court. It is going to become a campaign issue unless the Speaker of the House can get in the good graces of the Democrats. And he gets in the good graces of the Democrats by helping the Democrats change their election. He gets in the good graces of the Democrats by giving them the opportunity for a primary where they would not have one. As we head to November with the special election for Kelly Loeffler, the Democrats look like they're going to have 5 candidates on the ballot against one Republican named Kelly Loeffler. What the Democrats want to do is they want to stack the deck in favor of a single Democrat. The only way to stack the deck in favor of a single Democrat is to create a primary where there is no primary. There has never been a primary for a special election in Georgia. And the Democrats now want one just for this race. They just want it for this race. And the Speaker of the House is willing to give it to him. The Speaker of the House is willing to rewrite the laws in the state of Georgia to benefit the Democrats. Why would the Speaker of the House, a Republican, do this? Because there are a growing number of House members on the Republican side who are ready to get rid of the Speaker because of his scandal. And the Speaker needs to keep conservatives divided. And so if he can create a primary that causes Doug Collins to get in and challenge Kelly Loeffler, you're going to have a split among conservative groups in the state. You're going to have a split among conservative activists in the state. You're going to have a split among conservative voters in the state. You're going to have a split among conservative money in the state. And that will all distract them from the Speaker. It is to the Speaker's advantage to help the Democrats. The Democrats want to change the rules in the state of Georgia. They are going to rush a meeting through this afternoon to try to make it happen. You all need to take action to stop the Democrats and the Speaker and protect the Republicans, the governor, and conservatives in the state. I will make it very easy for you. But to make it easy for you, you've got to pick up your phone right now and text the word Army to 33777, and I will send you a text link back to the Action Center so you can tell your state representative, do not let the Democrats and the Speaker steal this election.
As both sides target Georgia for 2020, Erick gives you the news you need from a Georgia perspective.
Holy moly. Welcome back. It is Erick Erickson here. So, gosh, I may go bankrupt here in the next 20 minutes. We've got about 7,007. Well, it's not about. It actually is 7,741 of you are on this action alert list now. We've had in just the last 20 minutes, we've had over 200 more people sign up for this conservative army. And so everybody at 10:45 this morning, you're going to get a text message. And it's going to be from me. It's not going to be from my cell phone number, though. You can't have my cell phone number. And you're going to be able to click the link and generate an email. If you have Twitter or tweet, you'll also be able to generate a phone call to your state representative. You'll be able to call straight to their office. You click the little phone icon, and you'll hear my voice say, I'm going to connect you to your state representative, put in your zip code so I get you to the right person, and boom, away you will go to your state representative and tell them to kill House Bill 757. It is an effort to change the rules in the middle of the game, and they don't need to do it. And we got to do that this morning because they're meeting after lunch this afternoon to try to rush this through. The governor's going to veto it, by the way, but you need to put the fear of God in your state representative. Make sure your state representative knows you're a constituent, and there will be hell to pay if they try to change the rules to hurt conservatives, which is what they're going to do. And I feel bad for Doug Collins. He's caught in the middle of this. He's kind of a pawn of the speaker and the Democrats here, which is sad. He's a smart guy. I really like the guy. I have him on this program all the time, and I'll continue to have him on. And I'm not going to say a bad word about him because he's a fine guy. But, man, he should not be going down this road. If he wants to challenge Loeffler, do it in 2022. Don't do it right now while the Democrats are in disarray in the state of Georgia. Now, I'm also, by the way, willing to take your phone calls here. I won't bite. You can call in 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. We do need to get into an impeachment update, and we also need to review the state of play of the Democratic Party. But I got to go back to something I mentioned at the end of the last hour. For over a month now, we have been hearing that Nancy Pelosi is a strategic genius. She dragged out the articles of impeachment, and somehow she was a strategic genius for doing that. And what did it do? It gave the Republicans a new talking point. That if this really was that big a deal, if the president is a threat to national security, why did the Democrats sit on the articles of impeachment for a month? And it gave a great talking point to the Republicans as well, that Nancy Pelosi was dragging this out to interfere with the Iowa caucuses to help Joe Biden by taking the progressives off the campaign trail, by making Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders sit in the United States Senate. They couldn't be on the campaign trail in Iowa, and that would help Joe Biden. Well, guess what? Turns out that the job approval for the president of the United States is the highest it has ever been since the day he took office. According to Gallup, which does historically accurate monitoring of the job approval rating, but also in the polling averages. Forget the individual poll, in the polling average. Donald Trump's job approval is now the highest it has ever been. At the same time, Bernie Sanders is running away with it in Iowa. I thought Nancy Pelosi was a strategic genius. The media told us that Nancy Pelosi was a strategic genius. And yet that's not what's happening here, folks.
30.
And it looks like Nancy Pelosi has probably helped Bernie Sanders. And the Democrats are starting to freak out that Bernie Sanders just might pull this off. And we should examine the implications of Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump, because he has skyrocketed in the polling. And I got some thoughts I'll share. We'll take your calls as well. 877-97-ERIC. All right. One more time. Don't want to be a broken record. We got plenty of stuff to talk about. We'll take your phone calls. 877-97-ERIC. 877-973-7425. In about 10 minutes, you're going to get a text message from me. And the text message is going to encourage you to click a link, to email and call and tweet, if you have it, your state representative to oppose House Bill 757. Now, this is happening right now. The Speaker of the House, David Ralston, has gavelled into session this morning, and Doug Collins was the designated leader of prayer, which is very explicitly an endorsement of Doug Collins by the Speaker of the House, who is challenging Brian Kemp for power in the state. Listen, I like Doug Collins a lot. I have him on this program, but I think this is a mistake and he's being used by the Speaker. Why would you want to align yourself with someone as scandal-plagued as the Speaker, a Speaker who has been openly hostile to conservatives in the state of Georgia? I don't think that's smart on Doug Collins' part. I think he's making a mistake. And I think we need to kill House Bill 757. So if you haven't, the text message is away in less than 10 minutes now. You need to text the word Army to 33777. When you get the link, share it with your friends. Have them call as well. You need to kill this bill, House Bill 757 in the Georgia legislature. It is designed by House Democrats to steal the election. And you know, the most galling part about this, Bob Trammell is the leader of the Democrats in the state house, and he actually has been very open about this. He gave a huge interview to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that they were going to work with the Speaker of the House to do this very thing. They were going to work with the Speaker of the House to undermine the governor. They were going to work with the Speaker of the House to undermine the governor's ability to unite conservatives in the state. And the Speaker went along with it, and it's appalling that Doug would go along with this when the Democrats have been very, very open about the fact they intend to do this. That's just, it's a shame. It is. It really is a shame. I hate to see it happen, and yet here we are. So now, can we talk about Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump? Can we move along from state stuff? Bernie Sanders is now skyrocketing in the poll. You know what? Actually, I don't want to talk about Bernie Sanders yet. I want to wait for Bernie Sanders. I want to get the John Bolton stuff out of the way. And you need to know this, and I need to give you some full disclosure here. John Bolton and I share a literary agent, Javelin Group. In fact, I've got a book I'm rushing to surprise them with now, and they'll be my literary agent for it. Javelin Group, they represent a lot of conservatives in D.C., but not just conservatives. They represent some Democrats as well. A great group of people. Keith Urban used to be the chief of staff to Donald Rumsfeld. That's how I got to know him. He started this literary group. He's great. And Keith is adamant that this leak did not come from them, and I trust him. And Bolton is adamant this leak did not come from them, and I trust Bolton. And the publisher is adamant it did not come from them, and I don't know the publisher, but I would be willing to bet it didn't come from them. Here is why I'm willing to bet that John Bolton is not the source of the leak. Have you actually seen the leak? Do you know what's actually in the leak? Have you seen the actual words that John Bolton put on the page? You haven't. Neither have I. None of us have seen the actual leak. None of us have seen the actual text. Isn't that striking to you? Isn't that, that should be a big deal. We haven't seen the actual link. We haven't seen the actual text. We haven't seen the actual words. We haven't seen the actual transcript. We haven't seen the actual manuscript. We haven't seen the direct quotes. If John Bolton's team leaked this, we would not have a synopsis of what he allegedly said. We would have the actual words, or we would have some semblance of the actual words, not what we have. What we have right now is someone characterizing what John Bolton said. That is different from a summation of what he said. That is different from the actual words that he used. It is a third party who read it, and that person is conveying their sense of what John Bolton said. That's not a leak from John Bolton. That's a leak from the National Security Council that's vetting John Bolton's book. And what do we know about that setup? What we know is that there are still people embedded within the national security apparatus of the White House and the intelligence community who are out to undermine the president. The whistleblower is still there. Alexander Vindman's still there. All these other people are still there. And I don't know who the leaker is. I have no idea. Now, there is a story circulating. You do need to know this. There is a story circulating that Alexander Vindman, remember, he's the colonel or lieutenant who testified against the president. There is a story out that his brother is the person who vets the books for the National Security Council. That is false. You do need to understand this. If truth matters, and truth matters, then we don't need to be spreading lies. And that is, I have confirmed myself with the White House itself, with the National Security Council itself, that neither Vindman nor his brother play any role whatsoever in approving stuff like this, and most likely would not have seen it, which means it's someone else we don't know. Maybe it's the person who wrote the anonymous New York Times op-ed against the president. I don't know. But clearly there are people inside the White House and the national security apparatus of this country still working very hard, very tirelessly to undermine the president of the United States. We don't need to blame John Bolton. I want to play part of this clown show from Lou Dobbs. It's offensive to me, and I want you to listen to this.
An administration source telling Fox today, Yevgeny denies that he was part of the team that vetted Bolton's manuscript. Bolton's super PACs, by the way, we should point out, have more than $2 million in cash on hand. His major donors are Romney supporters and, well, many of them never Trumpers. The top three donors, Robert Mercer, Richard Uihlein, Warren Stevens, spent millions supporting Romney in 2012 and opposing Trump in 2016. See how it works? You bet. Not so complicated, is it? John Bolton himself has been reduced to a tool for the radical Dems and the deep state with his allegation that the president once told him that the aid to the Ukraine was entirely dependent on whether or not Mr. Zelensky carried out investigations of his political opponents. Bolton's book agency, Javelin, has published books by disgruntled current and former government officials such as, well, former fired FBI Director James Comey, the anonymous Trump administration official who wrote the book A Warning, and Cliff Sims, a former White House staffer who the president said broke a non-disclosure agreement to write a book bashing the White House. Do you see the pattern here with Mr. Bolton? And Javelin partners bragged to the New York Times about their approach. Quote, "We've met with or talked to probably every major official you would know who has departed or is thinking of departing the Trump White House." Now, those are active literary agents there, by golly.
Y'all, Javelin has published books by Fox News' Tucker Carlson. They've helped publish books by Trump supporters. Curious Lou Dobbs would leave all of those people out. I'm surprised he didn't add me to the list. And by the way, Richard Uihlein is actually a friend of mine, Dick Uihlein, and he spent a lot of money defending the president of the United States. He spent a lot of money propping up super PACs to help the president in 2020. This is my chief frustration with the present age. The number of people whose character must be assassinated because you no longer agree with them. The number of people whose character must be assassinated after years of defending them. The number of people you must beclown yourself to attack someone because you think they're undermining the president. Y'all, we don't know what John Bolton actually said. We don't actually have the transcript. We don't have the manuscript. And that's a pretty big freaking clue that John Bolton is not the source of the stuff, that it's someone from the National Security Council. And if it's someone from the National Security Council, they've mischaracterized so much of the president of the past. Remember mischaracterizing the president's conversations with various foreign leaders? That was from embedded careerists within the national security apparatus inside the White House. How do we know that they accurately characterized Bolton's story? And yet we're going to pile on John Bolton, a man we've all considered a patriot, a man who is a patriot, a man who has been a conservative hero for a decade or more, 2 decades, since George W. Bush. John Bolton, I've gone to CPAC before and seen the kids following him around demanding his autograph. He's been treated like a rock star by conservatives for years, but oh my gosh, he might have said something critical of the president. Kill him! Kill him! Assassinate his character. With a clown show conspiracy theory. John Bolton was been supported by these people who supported Mitt Romney, who we're not going to tell you support Donald Trump right now, and by a book publisher who published books by anti-Trump people, and we're not going to tell you Tucker Carlson as well. We're going to leave out key details, so you think they're all out to get the precious. This is Gollum-esque by Lou Dobbs. It's kind of ridiculous. And I'm sorry, it embarrasses my sense of intellectual honesty to see a bunch of conservatives pile on a guy that they loved up until 5 seconds ago because they think he might say something critical of the president. I still think it's a trap, by the way. I still think John Bolton is trying to set up the Democrats. I absolutely do. Notice that whoever leaked this is not willing to give you John Bolton's exact words. Why? Because I bet John Bolton's exact words are not nearly as incendiary as what the New York Times leak would have you believe. Notice that John Bolton has refused to comply with requests to testify or speak publicly. Why? Because he's honoring the wishes of the president. John Bolton doesn't have to honor the president's executive privilege request. He doesn't have to do that. John Bolton can go out if he wants and say whatever he wants, and he's not. John Bolton submitted his book to the National Security Council for vetting. He didn't just run out there and publish it. Now, arguably, he could have gotten in legal trouble had he done it, let's be fair, but he could have done it. And he could show up in Congress tomorrow and say whatever he wants to say, and there's nothing the president can do to stop him. And he would have protection from Congress. He would have legal immunity. The president could not go after him for violating executive privilege if he testified in the impeachment trial. And he's not doing that. John Bolton wants the Democrats to force him to come. And if John Bolton went, I do not believe that John Bolton would sabotage this presidency. Why? John Bolton was the architect of convincing the president to get out of the Israel or the Iran deal. John Bolton was on the outside deeply persuasive in the president moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. John Bolton was deeply persuasive in getting the president to withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. He wasn't even national security advisor at the time. John Bolton was deeply persuasive in getting the president to kill Soleimani. It was John Bolton's freaking idea to go kill Soleimani. It was John Bolton's idea to restructure the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which this White House is doing. It was John Bolton's idea to bolster forces in Saudi Arabia and help Saudi Arabia against Iran. It was John Bolton's idea to try to reforge tight alliances with Australia in the South Pacific against China. It was John Bolton's idea for the president to speak up and say something nice about the Hong Kong protesters. The only difference of opinion John Bolton has had with this White House is over Syria. That's it. Everything else, John Bolton and this president have largely seen eye to eye on, and John Bolton has got the overwhelming number of his policies implemented. And the coup de grace for John Bolton is that the president finally killed Soleimani, something that Bolton has wanted for 6 months and has openly advocated for 6 months. To think that that man is going to throw this president under the bus is like the Democrats thinking Bob Mueller was going to provide them a silver bullet to take out the president. It is resistance fan fiction. And it's striking to see these people treating John Bolton as a hero where for years they treated him like garbage because he was a conservative. He's not a neocon warmonger, contrary to labels some are throwing around. John Bolton is a loyal American patriot who served his country and puts his country's vital interests ahead of everything else. And that, my friends, is exactly why he's not going to throw this president under the bus. That, my friends, is why John Bolton wants to be the hero. John Bolton wants the Democrats to get that subpoena. He wants Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Pat Toomey and Cory Gardner to call him. He wants to be on the floor of the Senate, and he wants the president there watching on TV live as CNN and MSNBC salivate that, by God, this is the moment the Trump White House comes crashing down, and then John Bolton saves it for the president. And watches liberal heads explode, and Lou Dobbs suddenly pretends he never did that stupid monologue last night, and John Bolton is a Machiavellian hero who played everyone perfectly to save the Trump White House and the Trump legacy. I think it's a trap. I think John Bolton knows exactly what he's doing. He's way smarter than pretty much any member of Congress. He wants to be the hero, and this is a way to do it. Sabotage the Democrats' impeachment effort. Watch it happen if they call him as a witness. And by the way, I actually think this is why deep down the Democrats don't actually want him to be a witness. They just want to use his lack of testifying against the Republicans.
Erick Erickson gives you the information you need and the
It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Check your text messages. You should have just gotten a text message from me a few minutes ago if you're on the Army activist list. I will set it up here momentarily so you don't have to go. You can do it directly without that text message system. But we've got already 347 of you out of the 7,147 people I sent it to, 347 of you have already begun making your phone calls and emails. Yeah, this is good. Samuel and Melissa, you're the latest out there to engage in this. So thank you very much for doing that, making sure that your state representatives are heard and that they know to kill House Bill 757. James just did it, and David as well. Now, we got to move on to other stuff. I've made my case on John Bolton. True news. This is something the White House has done that is bad. Never say I'm opposed to criticizing this White House, because I am, and this this is one thing they've done that is bad. The White House has given press credentials to an outfit called True News. True News is a deeply anti-Semitic website. The people on True News actually refer to Israel as the synagogue of Satan and believe that much of our foreign policy is done with the Jews pulling strings. And they actually believe this. They actually believe that Israel is a synagogue of Satan. That is an actual phrase used on that network. This network also believes, or has people on air to advocate, that Queen Elizabeth II is actually a lizard person. I wish I was making that up. There is actually a lizard person. Queen Elizabeth II is a lizard person who murdered Princess Diana. That is another view that is aired on this network. It is a network of crazy people. It is a network of people who hate Jews. It is a network of people who have made preposterous theories about shootings and otherwise all being done to placate Jews or being done by Jews, and false flags and nonsense like that. And the White House gave this group press credentials. I don't know who in the White House did that, but it needs to be undone. I don't know who in the White House thought it was a good idea, but the White House needs to walk this back. The White House should not be opening themselves up to these sorts of attacks. I mean, this was an easy thing to avoid. This was an easy thing for the White House to not do. And I don't know who in the White House did it, but it's given them a press headline they did not need, and it's given them something that, what a waste of time. What a waste of White House resources. What a waste of needing to defend an organization that actually advocated for the idea that Queen Elizabeth II is a lizard person. Why would you do that? Who in the White House does this sort of stuff? And I raise this because it is a relevant and big issue in this regard. The President of the United States of America has a White House press shop that needs to be on its A game at all time because he has so many people out to get him. And when they are distracted by nonsense like giving press credentials to an organization that believes Israel is the synagogue of Satan, I mean, and I realize you've given press credentials to groups like MSNBC and others, but still, even MSNBC has not pushed the idea that Queen Elizabeth II is a lizard person who murdered Princess Diana. This isn't good, and they need to undo this. And I'm hoping, well, I know there are people who listen, and I'm hoping that they will convey this message and tell the president he needs to do otherwise. Okay,
30.
We need to move on. We need to get out of Georgia politics, although there actually is a story I do need to spend time on. The Georgia Department of Natural Resources thought they had a whole lot of money, and they started making a whole lot of grants to organizations for wildlife and wilderness and conservation. And it turns out they didn't have the money they thought they had when they made the grants. Yeah, stick around for that. Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. Well, you know, the flexibility of this program, we can shake things up. We got to deviate from all the stuff I wanted to. If you went to theresurgent.com, you saw kind of my outline of the stuff I wanted to talk about. And I told you when we left the last hour, coming into this hour, I wanted to talk about this Department of Natural Resources story out of Georgia before getting into the Sanders versus Trump stuff. But we got to turn all of that on its head and do something else. The first thing you need to know is, listen, if you miss the text message from me, but you still want to call your state representative and tell them to kill House Bill 757. House Bill 757 is the legislation that would rewrite the election rules to help the Democrats while the election is happening. They're working with the Speaker of the House. I'm going to make it real easy for you right now. You don't have to be on the Army list. Here's what you do. Text the word Erick, E-R-I-C-K. That's my name. I'm going to teach you how to spell it right so you can call into the program. The phone number for the program is 877-97-ERIC. 877-973-7425. And Erick is E-R-I-C-K. But if you get on your cell phone right now and the number to text is 52886, text the word Erick, E-R-I-C-K, to 52886. Do it right now. And that will send you back the link as well so that you can go straight to the Action Center. It's too late to now subscribe to the Army list today. You should have already subscribed to the Army list. Now, if you want immediate action on this issue to stop the Democrats and the Speaker of the House of Georgia from stealing the election from Brian Kemp and Kelly Loeffler, you need to text Erick, E-R-I-C-K, to the number 52886. Do it right now. Do it right now. Do it right now. Text Erick, E-R-I-C-K, to 52886, and you will be connected into my Action Center at the Resurgent to text your state representatives. Now, I got to shake up the show because Jon Ossoff has come out in favor of cancel culture. Little millennial that he is, Jon Ossoff believes that if you're a Trump supporter, you need to never be able to show your face again in the state of Georgia. I'm not kidding. I've got the audio right here happening right now on the Erick Erickson Show. This is Jon Ossoff. I got the video.
We need to send a message this year. We need to send a message that if you indulge this kind of politics, you're not just going to get beaten. You're going to get beaten so bad you can never run or show your face again in public. Because we have had enough, absolutely enough, of what we are getting from Donald Trump and his fellow travelers right now.
We're going to make sure you never show your face again. Never run for office again. One more time. One more time.
We need to send a message this year. We need to send a message that if you indulge this kind of politics, you're not just going to get beaten. You're going to get beaten so bad you can never run or show your face again in public. Because we have had enough, absolutely enough, of what we are getting from Donald Trump and his fellow travelers right now.
Oh, so we're going to engage in cancel culture, John? I would have thought that he would have never wanted to show his face in public again after wasting $30 million of Hollywood money to lose to Karen Handel. But apparently he's back and he's raising money. You know what's so interesting here? This is the interesting tell in this race for the Democrats here in Georgia. And by the way, this relates to the other situation. Gosh, I really am a one-topic show today, and I don't intend to be. But let me tie these two stories together. The Democrats in the State House, if you're just tuning in here, the Democrats in the State House are working with the Speaker of the House, who is purportedly a Republican. They want to change the rules of the 2020 election to create a primary for Kelly Loeffler. They think they can beat Doug Collins, and they also think that they need to rally around a single person. The Democrats don't want to have 5 Democrats versus Kelly Loeffler in November. They want to create a primary, so it's 1 Democrat versus Loeffler or Collins. And if they do that, there will also be 1 Democrat against David Perdue, because those Democrats will have a primary since it's not a special election. And right now it's Sarah Riggs Amico, Jon Ossoff, and Teresa Tomlinson. Ted Terry, the mayor of Clarkston, Georgia, was in the race and dropped out of the race. So you got Ossoff, you got Tomlinson, you got Sarah Riggs Amico running for the race for David Perdue. And now the Democrats are worried they're going to have 5 or 6 Democrats running against Kelly Loeffler if they can create a primary if they can change the rules, and remember, the special election is ongoing right now. The race has already begun for the special election, and so the Democrats want to change the rules in the middle of the game, and the Speaker of the House is helping them because the Speaker of the House wants to rebuke Brian Kemp. He wants to divide conservatives. He wants to split the conservative base in Georgia because he knows that makes him more powerful if conservatives are divided. And so the Speaker of the House is helping the Democrats rewrite the rules. That's why you need to text Erick, E-R-I-C-K, to 52886 and tell your state rep to kill the legislation that would change the rules. But the Democrats have a problem in the Purdue race. They don't want Jon Ossoff. And Ossoff is raising money hand over fist. See, Ossoff, he's a telegenic guy the Hollywood establishment loves. He was in the filmmaking documentary business. He's got connections. He worked for John Lewis. He worked for Hank Johnson. They want a fresh young face. The Democrats are all a bunch of geriatrics. They would like a fresh young face. He's from Metro Atlanta. There's a problem, though. In Georgia, Jon Ossoff is not thought of very highly. The reason Ossoff isn't thought of very highly, a couple reasons. One, he literally did spend $30 million and lost a special election. And that was $30 million that could have gone to other races. But it's more than that. Jon Ossoff lost the race and fled the scene of the crime, so to speak. Jon Ossoff left the state. He did not stay involved in Georgia politics. He did not continue to build out a base. He did not work to grow the political establishment for the Democrats. He did not work to grow the bench in the state. He left the state, washed his hands of it, went away, never to be seen again. Until he decided he wanted to run for the Senate, and then he comes back. He stays under the radar. He doesn't help Stacey Abrams. He's not on the campaign trail aggressively for Stacey Abrams. He's not out there raising money for Stacey Abrams. He's not giving a lot of money from his war chest. He had money left over. He spent $30 million and had money left over. And did he give it to the state Democratic Party of Georgia? No, he did not. He's all about it for himself. Selfish candidate. And that burned bridges with Democrats in the state. And so between the candidates, it actually is notable that Jon Ossoff, he's got Hank Johnson and he's got John Lewis, both of whom he worked for. But it's Teresa Tomlinson who is racking up all the inside state endorsements. She's perceived as being more mainstream. She's perceived as being more engaged. She's perceived as being more open to the business community, which Democrats in the state of Georgia believe they need. She is perceived as being a better candidate overall with depth outside of Atlanta. Jon Ossoff, by the Democrats, perceive him as being an Atlanta-centric candidate who's not going to be able to win outside the Atlanta area. They perceive him as someone essentially whose boots have no scuff. Now, what does that mean? Rick Perry, actually. Rick Perry is a good friend of mine. And Rick Perry pointed it out one time in Texas that there was a candidate who will go nameless, not Beto O'Rourke, a candidate who will go nameless, and is actually a Republican candidate. And he said, here's the problem for this Republican candidate. His boots are all shine and no scuff. I think that's how he said it. His boots are all shine and no scuff. And what does that mean? Well, if you're a regular boot wearer, if you're a regular wearer of shoes in general, your shoes are going to get scuffed up if you're a hard worker. If you're running around and you're wearing boots to look like you're some country fella who can connect with people outside of cities and your boots are really shiny and they've got no scuff on them, well, then they know immediately you're a poser. They know immediately you're not authentically a boot wearer. And Jon Ossoff, his boots are all shine and no scuff. He comes into the state and makes himself look like, oh, shucks, I'm Jon Ossoff from DeKalb County. No, buddy, you're Jon Ossoff from DeKalb County. You ain't from around here, is you, fella? He's not going to play well outside of the metro Atlanta area. He's going to go down to South Georgia, and he's going to go to Cordele and call it Coeur d'Alene. You know, I've told the story before. When I worked for Saxby Chambliss in '94, I was a volunteer, not on the payroll. I was a constituent coordinator. They didn't have a ton of money. They were running against, what was that guy's name? Craig Mathis in 1994. And Saxby had a fundraiser. The district was the 8th congressional district, ran from Macon all the way down to the Florida line, covered Moultrie, where Saxby was from. And he got a fundraiser named Nancy to come down. She was from Chicago. And the guy who was going to introduce Saxby at a small event in Cordele got sick and couldn't do it. And Nancy got on stage and told everyone how excited the future congressman was to be in Coeur d'Alene. Coeur d'Alene, as opposed to Cordele. You know, John Ossoff, he's going to get south of I-20 and he's going to go to Houston County instead of Houston County. He's going to go to Vienna instead of Vienna. He's not going to know where he is when he gets to Unadilla. And he's going to go to Cairo instead of Cairo. Listen, the next station that I want to be on in Georgia is, dare I say it, my wife is not here, so I can, is Albany. I'm trying to continue to grow this show and get it in as many markets in the state of Georgia as possible. And Columbus, Albany, Carrollton, Savannah, Augusta, those are all markets I want to get into. And my wife is appalled because I am from Louisiana. I'm from South Louisiana, and I grew up in Dubai. And she tells me all the time, if you want to be in Albany, you got to say Albany, Albany, Albany. And so my buddy Chris Burns, who fills in for me here, my financial advisor, he also ridicules me because he can say Albany. Y'all, it's Albany. I'm sorry. I'm not. I apologize to those of you in Albany. If this keeps me off your radio market, because I'm not going to say Albany. Whatever. I will have my wife do the voiceover, and so every time I want to say welcome to the people in, I'll push the button and she'll pronounce the name right. But I can do Cairo instead of Cairo. I can do Vienna instead of Vienna, and I can do Houston instead of Houston, and all the other little, like Taliaferro is actually Talifer. I learned that one years ago when I was working a congressional race. Now, of course, you come with me to Louisiana and you will encounter the Atchafalaya Basin and Chapitulus, and you will encounter all of these great words that you can't pronounce unless you're from South Louisiana. But man, Vienna and Vienna, Houston and Houston, Cairo and Cairo, and pecan and pecan. You know, I asked Brian Kemp one time, what's the difference between pecan and pecan? And it's about $15 a pound. That was his answer. But still, John Ossoff is going to have these problems. It is fine for John Ossoff in the metro Atlanta area among a bunch of Democrats to say, we are going to shut these Republicans down and they're never going to be able to win again. Again, here, John Ossoff, in his own words, this is on video. I just put it on social media. You can go to my Twitter feed at EW Erickson, see it for yourself. This is John Ossoff, the would-be Senate candidate.
We need to send a message this year. We need to send a message that if you indulge this kind of politics, you're not just going to get beaten. You're going to get beaten so bad you can never run or show your face again in public. Because we have had enough, absolutely enough, of what we are getting from Donald Trump and his fellow travelers.
You're going to get beat so badly you can never show your face again. How's that going to play in Houston County or Bibb County or Thomas County or Macon County or Lowndes County? How's that going to play in Douglas County or Carroll County? How's it going to play in Cayuga County? How's it going to play in Habersham or Floyd? It may play well in downtown Atlanta. It may play well in Decatur. It may play well in Athens. But is that rhetoric really going to play well outside of the metro Atlanta or the academic core of Athens? I don't think it is. The rule of the game here, the strategy here is to win the general election, not to win the primary. And you never want to say or do anything to win a primary that costs you the general election. And Jon Ossoff, with that video, if he's the Democratic nominee, you can be sure that David Perdue and the Republicans are going to have that everywhere, that Jon Ossoff wants to make sure you can never show your face in public again. And do you really think he's going to win that message outside of the metro Atlanta core? Even in the suburbs, they're not going to like that message.
I really do like his opinion on things.
Erick Erickson, the information you need and the truth you demand.
Reminder right now, if you want to participate in the action alert, tell your state representative to not work with the Democrats to change the rules of the election now that the special election has begun. You need to text Erick, E-R-I-C-K, to 52886. Text Erick to 52886, and you can get into the Action Center right now. I will tell you, if you are listening down in Quitman, Valdosta, Adel, That's another one. The Adele area. Speaking of pronunciations here, as opposed to I had somebody refer to it to me as Adele. Heard you were on the radio in Adele. I was like, you mean Adele? Adele Outfitters. I need to go down there. What a heck of a place. I love that place. If you've never been to Adele Outfitters, drive down the interstate down there. It is worth it. It's a great place. Like, fantastic gun selection. But I bring it up because if you're in the Lowndes County area, you're in Quitman, Adele, our affiliates down there, not a lot of you engaged right now on this issue, and you need to be, because it's going to be some of these South Georgia Republicans who are going to make the difference with the Speaker of the House. So if you're down there, make sure you and your friends text the word Erick, E-R-I-C-K, to 52886 and tell the Georgia Republicans in the state legislature not to change the rules of the election with the Democrats, because that is what the Democrats want you guys to do, and it's bad, 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 bad. Don't let them do it. Okay, we got to move on to other stuff, don't we? Let's get into some of the impeachment update, and, well, things are not going swimmingly for the Democrats still. There is some movement to bring in witnesses, but I have to tell you, I'm not sure it's going to happen. Here's Phil Mattingly on CNN.
Yeah, Chris, at the end of Alan Dershowitz's presentation, more than a dozen Republican senators walked up to him to shake his hand, including Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who you can hear say wonderful to Dershowitz. And let me explain why that's important. The Senate GOP conference right now is in a different place than they were this morning. I'm told that they were very unsettled by the Bolton revelations the New York Times broke last night. As Carl mentioned, Senate Majority Leader McConnell had not been looped in on the manuscript before it was reported by the New York Times. His office even put out a one-sentence statement saying he had no advanced knowledge, or a rather terse statement that I think was pointed for a reason, and here's why. I'm told behind the scenes several Republican senators made calls to the White House out of frustration, saying, look, we need to know about these things if you know about them in advance. We're on the front lines here, and we feel like we were left out of the loop. Chris, there was a closed-door lunch before the Senate gabbled into session today where several Republican members voiced their concerns about where things were headed. They were so unsettled, in fact, that one Senate Republican, Pat Toomey, raised an idea that's been pinging around the Republican conference for the last couple of weeks. Basically, if we're going to get to the point where witnesses are going to be pursued, we need to do a one-to-one exchange, one Republican witness for one Democratic witness. But here's the reality. McConnell and top Republicans still do not want witnesses and still believe they can defeat that vote that will happen after the White House presentation and senator questions. What McConnell told senators in that closed-door meeting, I'm told, was this: take a deep breath. Wait for the presentations, hear the White House out, and wait for your senator questions before you make any definitive statements on next steps. The reality is 2 Republican senators, Mitt Romney and Susan Collins, made clear today they are closer than they've ever been to voting to pursue witnesses. But Republicans can afford to lose 3. As of now, that 3rd and 4th is not quite apparent. The expectation is Lisa Murkowski's probably likely in that camp, but the 4th senator or 5th or 6th has still not been identified. That's what Senate Democrats are pushing for. That was what their hope the Bolton revelations would produce. But at this point in time, there has been no breakout of Republican senators.
There haven't been. And I got to tell you that the pushback from the GOP, Senator Barrasso and others, pointing out that, Bolton, this revelation from the New York Times about John Bolton, it really doesn't add anything. Nothing has actually changed. They knew what John Bolton felt. And the position of a number of these Republican senators is that the Democrats could have called Bolton in the House and chose not to. And they rushed it through. And now they're using the lack of witnesses against the Senate, and that it would be bad precedent for the Senate to cave to the Democrats on this issue and embolden this in the future with future Senates where the House doesn't do a thorough impeachment job and then weaponizes their lack of thorough impeachment to go after the Senate. And they're concerned about that, and I think they should be concerned about that. It actually is a big issue that they need to take seriously here. More on this and Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump. Is that a reality when we come back? welcome back. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number, if you want to be a part of the program, I really do take your phone calls, 877-97-ERIC. 877-973-7425. Well, Wyatt called and left a voicemail, didn't actually come on air, said the actual difference. I mentioned Governor Kempis told me before the difference between a pecan and a pecan is $15 a pound. I have said very much what Wyatt left in voicemail. I tell my wife all the time, I'm from South Louisiana where we said pecan. We did not say pecan. In South Georgia, they say pecan. I always tell her a pecan is something you flush. Wyatt says it's something you'd take on a road trip so you don't have to stop to use the bathroom. Same difference. But those of you in our affiliates south of I-20, calm down. All right. 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I want to play for you this audio of Mike Bloomberg and his crowd and listen to the reaction of the Democrats who are, they're cheering on Bloomberg. Oh, wow. I can't play for you this audio because it's off channel, which means that let me see if I can actually get in here and play for you. So occasionally audio is recorded by TV stations that we get, and this is very inside the weeds, but it is worth explaining to you, where it's played on a different channel. Meaning that I can see that there's an audio wave file, but when you play it, it's not played on the left channel or the right channel. It's playing on a center channel that no radio broadcast booth actually has. So you got to go scramble around and find some other way to deal with it, which is a dumb thing to do. In any event, the point of this, whether we could play the audio file or not, is Mike Bloomberg and his acolytes at a rally. And they're cheering on shutting down coal plants in the United States. Yeah, okay. I may be able to play this audio for you because it is worth hearing the reaction to the crowd if we can. Nope, we're not going to be able to process this for you. Sorry. So Bloomberg and his crowd are cheering on closing coal-powered plants. And this is becoming a real concern for the Democrats in Ohio and Pennsylvania, because Ohio is leans Republican, but is a swing state. And Pennsylvania obviously is a big swing state. And they're cheering on closing down coal power plants, which will put people out of jobs. And it is something Bernie Sanders is doing as well, and Elizabeth Warren is doing. It is something, interestingly enough, Joe Biden did for a little while and then backed away from. And the reason Biden backed away from it is it turns out that blue-collar voters, when they hear you cheering that they're going to be out of a job, tend not to vote for you. Surprise! I know. I mean, who would have thought? But there you have it. Blue-collar voters don't want to cheer you on when you're out to get them and out to shut down their jobs and out to take their jobs away. And yet that's what they're doing. And that's going to mean that a Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump race is going to be an interesting thing to see. And it may happen. I still think the advantage is to Joe Biden. I think the advantage is to Joe Biden because, believe it or not, the average Democratic voter is not as far left as a lot of the political activists out there. The average Democratic voter out there is, he is more moderate than your Democratic activists. He's not as woke as Jon Ossoff, among other things. And they want to beat Donald Trump badly, but they don't want to go hard left. So, yes, Bernie Sanders has gone up in the polling in Iowa, but I got to tell you, polling in Iowa isn't a very good thing. Do you all understand what the caucuses are? Let me explain the caucus to you and why polling isn't very good for caucuses. Now, you can actually poll people and just ask, have you been to a caucus before? And you may get an okay representation. The problem is not everybody stays that long. So what's the deal here? Well, let's break this down for you. How do you vote? If you're listening to me, the odds are you are in a state that doesn't have caucuses. You're probably in Georgia if you're listening to me. And what do you do on a primary? In a primary, you go to your local voter location, your local precinct. Mine is, if you're familiar with the Macon area, I am off of Bass Road, and so I go to Mabel White Baptist Church, which is now, I guess they changed the name to Turning Point or some such, right off of Bass Road in Macon, Georgia, right off the interstate there, exit 172. And you go in there, you fill out the little form. What are they? There's the blue form and there's the pink form, I think, or the blue form, white form, I can't remember. But you fill out the form and you want the Republican ballot or the Democratic ballot. So you say, I would say I want the Republican ballot. So I fill out the little form. I put my name. I put my address. I sign my name. I bring my photo ID. I hand it to them. And then they give me the little card to stick in the machine. And it's programmed to only pull up the Republican candidates. I say, it's a Republican primary. The only person on the ballot here is Donald Trump. Click Donald Trump and I leave. That's it. That's it. There's not going to be a Senate primary. If you kill House Bill 757, we won't have to worry about a Senate primary. David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler will be on the ballot in November. So there aren't going to be any major races. There'll be Donald Trump, a Republican presidential primary. There may not even be that. I think the GOP in Georgia is going to cancel the presidential primary because nobody's going to vote for Joe Walsh and Bill Weldon anyway. So that's what you do. It's what you do for every election. You go in, you push the button, and you leave. That's not what a caucus is. A caucus is fundamentally a different creature. With a caucus, you go in the evening and you hear pitches from candidates at every precinct. This is why caucuses are about organization in a way that a primary is not. In a caucus, every precinct, you go to each precinct has a caucus location. Sometimes because of the size of counties, it's just a county location. Everybody shows up at one location. But in bigger areas, each precinct has one. And so each precinct has a candidate representative. And each of those candidate representatives is allowed to make their pitch. And you got to sit there and listen to their pitch. And their pitch can't be long. They're timed. They'll get cut off. But someone gets to make a pitch for Joe Biden. I believe you should vote for Joe Biden because we need to beat Donald Trump. Polls show that Joe Biden is in the lead, and polls show that Joe Biden does best against Donald Trump. Black voters are going to join forces with us when we get to the South. Joe Biden needs to be the nominee. He's the guy best able to beat Donald Trump, and he's the guy who was Barack Obama's vice president. Vote Joe Biden. Thank you. And they sit down. And the Bernie Sanders person gets up. I believe we need a major revolution in this country, and you need to support Bernie Sanders because we don't need to go back to the Obama administration. We need to go forward to something new, and Bernie Sanders is the way forward, and he's the way to beat Donald Trump and to give this country something new that's never been done before. Socialism. Rah! And then the Bernie person sits down. And Elizabeth Warren's person gets up. We need to go with Elizabeth Warren because white people who think they're Native Americans are cool, and that's why I like Elizabeth Warren. And she sits down, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. And everybody gets a pitch. The pitches are focus grouped. The pitches are scripted, and each person reads from that script, and that script is very short. And then the room divides. And as the room divides, people can be persuaded to move from the Joe Biden block to the Warren block, from the Warren block to the Sanders block. Andrew Yang is gaining. You know, if I go to Andrew Yang, I can keep him in the game. I'm going to walk from Sanders over to Andrew Yang. Oh, wait. Biden really is the guy who needs to win. And he and Warren are tied in the precinct. I'm going to leave Yang and I got to go back to Biden to make sure that he gets more votes than Elizabeth Warren. Boom. Joe Biden wins the precinct. He's got one more vote than Elizabeth Warren. In each of those precincts, it's a manual count of the people. There are 20 people in Joe Biden's group. There are 19 people in Elizabeth Warren's group. There are 18 people in Bernie Sanders' group. There are 2 people in Andrew Yang's group. And then they divide them up. Proportional representation. Everybody gets a few delegates. The first person, second person, third person, everybody's divided up. You got to clear a threshold. I forget what the threshold is. But it is a long process. And here's the other thing. What day is it? It is January 28th. A week away from less than a week away, because I think it's on Monday night, the Iowa caucus. What is it? It's February 3rd is the Iowa caucus. That is going to be, it's a Monday night. The Iowa caucus, Monday night. And you're going to be there on a Monday night in Iowa, and it's going to be cold. It's going to be cold. And you're going to leave your family, you're going to leave your kids, you're going to leave your food, you're going to leave your kids' homework, you're going to leave all of that, and you're going to go hang out for multiple hours at the Iowa caucuses. You don't go in, push a button, and leave like you do in Georgia. You go hang out for hours at a caucus. And all the candidates make their pitch, and everybody jockeys for position. So it's really hard to do a poll of an Iowa caucus because it depends on who actually is going to show up and are they actually going to stay to see it through. It's one thing to say you've been to a caucus. It's another thing to say you've seen it through. But here's the other thing. It is a test of organizational mobility. If you can organize a ground game for a caucus, that's different from organizing for a primary. Because what's the voter for a primary to do? Show up, click a button, and leave, or fill in a bubble and leave. With a caucus, you're going to find people who are going to hang out. You're going to find people who can give speeches. You're going to find people who can be persuasive. You're going to do all of this stuff. So it's a great way to organize a ground game, but it also takes a big burden. And there's another problem. The Democratic Party doesn't have a good track record of having the person who wins Iowa becoming the nominee. John Kerry, you'll recall, lost Iowa, and I believe he lost New Hampshire. Barack Obama won. Hillary Clinton, I think, lost to Bernie Sanders. And so it's difficult to organize. It's very time intensive. Major candidates don't like to devote the resources. And every year there's the hand wringing that, we need to leave Iowa. Iowa and New Hampshire don't need to be first in the nation. They're too white. They're too unrepresentative. But the reason the parties like Iowa and New Hampshire first? Yes, it's tradition. It absolutely is tradition. But there's a reason they love the Iowa caucuses first, because it's forget the demographics, forget the ethnicity. It's about organization. Can you build an organization that can organize in a place like Iowa? Can you do a county by county, precinct by precinct organization for a caucus? Can you find the voters to show up and stay to support you? If you can do that, not every Democratic nominee has won the Iowa caucus. Again, John Kerry didn't. Hillary Clinton didn't. But no Democrat has ever won the presidency without winning the Iowa caucus, to my knowledge. I think Bill Clinton won the Iowa caucus, yeah. It's a sign of organizational fortitude, a sign of organizational strength, a sign of organizational strategy. And if you can do it, you can win. And Bernie Sanders looks like he may be able to do it. Joe Biden has not invested time, talent, or treasure in Iowa to make it happen. And that gives Bernie Sanders votes. But while all the media is saying this, and in the Real Clear Politics betting average, Bernie Sanders has gone up in the polling. Bernie Sanders in the lead right now. But let's look at the actual polling average still. Joe Biden is still at 28.7%. Joe Biden is at 28.7 in the national polling average. Sanders is at 23.3. Warren is at 14.9. Warren, by the way, is completely cratered. Bloomberg is now at 8. Buttigieg is now 7. Yang has gone up to 4.9. Klobuchar, 3.9. All these people trying to make it happen. Biden is up 5.4%. Now, let's stretch this out. The highest that Joe Biden has ever gotten was to 41.4%. 41.4. That was the day Joe Biden entered the race. Joe Biden got to 41.4%. But where was Joe Biden at the very beginning? Before Joe Biden was even a candidate, where was Joe Biden? Joe Biden was at 29% in the polling average. Where's Joe Biden today? 28.7. Just the other day, January 25th, Joe Biden was at 29.5%. That's pretty remarkable, actually, that Joe Biden has been consistent. You know what this reminds me of? In all honesty, this reminds me of, when was it? It was the 2012 Republican primary. 2012, hang on, let's see, 2012 Republican primary polling average. Let me make this point for you in case you've forgotten. In the 2012 Republican primary polling averages, who was it? Mitt Romney was holding steady at 24%, and then who came next? Rick Perry skyrocketed above him, and then Rick Perry fell and Romney back in the lead. And then who came next? Herman Cain. Remember Herman Cain? Herman Cain got above him. And then who came next? Newt Gingrich got above him. And then who came next? Well, Romney's back in the lead, and then Newt Gingrich back again in the lead. And then Romney, Rick Santorum. Rick Santorum's in the lead, and then Mitt Romney again and again and again. It is remarkable to look at the polling average from the Republican primary in 2012 and the polling average of the Democrats now in their historic measure of the ups and downs. And you know, the major difference is that Joe Biden has held steadier for longer than Mitt Romney did in 2012. With Mitt Romney's race, candidates would jump above him. First, Rick Perry did it, and then Herman Cain did it, and then Newt Gingrich did it, and then Gingrich did it again, and then Santorum did it. And even for a while, Bachmann almost surged on him. And each of those Republican candidates could get ahead of Mitt Romney in 2012. The only time that has happened to Joe Biden in this entire campaign season was once. Elizabeth Warren on one day in the polling average got ahead of him by 0.2 of a point. 0.2 of a point. On October 8th, 2019, Elizabeth Warren was ahead of Joe Biden for a single day in the polling average by 0.2 of a point. Otherwise, no one has gotten ahead of Joe Biden. It's remarkable to look at the Romney race in 2012 versus the Biden race in 2020. Essentially, all these candidates have been vying against each other to take on Joe Biden, but there have been so many of them, and none of them have wanted to get out of the way, that has given Joe Biden a tremendous advantage. You know, in the same way, go back to 2016 and look at Trump. You had all these candidates vying to be the alternative of Trump, and they spent so long vying to be the alternative of Trump, no one could actually take on Trump until it was too late. That's exactly what's happening with Biden, and that's to his advantage, but there's a problem there as well. No one's really challenged Biden in the way Trump will. They've tried and they've fallen flat. Kamala Harris tried the most and blew herself up. She didn't handle it well. She didn't engage. She didn't pursue it. And no one wants to be the sacrificial lamb. Donald Trump, he's going to throw punches at Joe Biden that these other candidates haven't thrown.
Politics, news, religion. Erick Erickson talks. 425.
I got to tell you guys, I think it would actually be a cathartic experience for the United States to have a Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump election. Now, no. For all of you who are thinking, oh, yeah, Bernie would be easy to beat, that's what Hillary Clinton said about Donald Trump. You will recall in 2016 that the Clinton team actively tried to help Donald Trump get the Republican nomination because they were convinced he would be the easiest path forward for them. True story. I think that this is not exactly a brilliant strategy for the Democrats, but I'm not going to say Sanders can't win. Sanders could win. And there's actually plenty of data that if enough Sanders supporters voted for Donald Trump in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin to turn those states towards him. Now, what that analysis does not include is how many Democrats would sit home and say, we can't destroy the Democratic Party like this. We can't go with a guy like Bernie Sanders because that would turn us into the Trump Party. Just 4 more years of Trump and then we'll clean house. That there's a possibility there that some Democrats will go there. There are some Democrats who are deeply, deeply fearful of the idea of running Bernie Sanders against Donald Trump. And they're afraid of a Jeremy Corbyn moment. They are afraid of the Bernie bro moment. Hillary Clinton has been warning about this phenomenon, the Bernie bro phenomenon. It concerns her and a lot of the Democratic establishment greatly. There's another problem that we should acknowledge as well. Bernie Sanders isn't a Democrat. Bernie is not a Democrat. He is an independent in the Senate, and yet he's trying to use the Democratic Party as a vehicle to get the nomination, and holy cow, they're going to maybe let him do it. I still think the advantage is to Joe Biden. And there's another thing about Bernie Sanders that's problematic for the Democrats. He's been a candidate for 40 years. He's been on the ballot for 40 years. In local races in Vermont all the way up to the United States Senate. He's got a major trail, major political traffic and more. And I gotta tell you that I don't think that the Democrats have ever bothered to dive deep into his record. Hillary Clinton made a mistake in 2016 of not doing opposition research on Bernie Sanders. I assure you the Republicans will leave no stone unturned, and Donald Trump has a bully pulpit and uses it better than any other candidate. And some of the stuff that's going to come out about Bernie Sanders is going to be cray-cray. You know, they were hyper defensive of Bernie Sanders. When I was on Bill Maher's show on Friday on HBO, everybody was very hypersensitive to the idea of me calling Bernie Sanders a communist. Oh, my goodness. Michael McFaul, he's not a communist. He's not a communist. Actually, yeah, I mean, the guy's communist. He calls himself a democratic socialist, but he's a communist. And he didn't like that, but it's true. And when some of the stuff about his ties to the Soviet Union come out, that's going to matter to people. His economic policies are going to matter to people. And it's going to be a vote for who do you think is going to wreck the country the least. And Donald Trump's going to win that fight against Sanders.